This is the Content Marketing Podcast. Episode number 218, Is Good Writing Making a Comeback? Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we hope you grow your tribe and your bottom line through insanely good content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is March 16th, 2017. Hello, or as we say in Texas, howdy, and thank you for joining us today for today's episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, this podcast is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and also Google Play Music. So if you like what you hear, please feel free to click on over and subscribe. I also invite you to download my complimentary ebook, Ninja Secrets of B2B Blogging. Grab your free copy to learn the secrets that every B2B blogging ninja knows. Go to resonancecontent.com/resources and you will see the link right there on the page. Also, note to my brethren and sestrin, sure, why not, in the healthcare industry here in the States, on Monday, I will be speaking at the Social Media for Healthcare Marketing Conference in Washington, D.C. Specifically, I'm going to be leading a 2-hour workshop on creating audience personas and why they're important and how to create them and how to use them. So if you are planning to attend, let me know. Maybe we can sync up for coffee during one of the breaks. And I don't know if registration is still open, but if you want to learn more about the event, just tweet me at Rach Parker and I will share the link with you. The URL is too long to share here, but I will be happy to share that link with you. Okay, last week we turned our attention to the big A. No, we're not talking about the scarlet letter. We're talking about authority. We talked about why authority in blogging is more important than ever, and we shared 7 ways to boost your authority in your own content. If you happen to miss that episode, feel free to check it out on iTunes or Stitcher or via the RSS feed. Today we talk about writing, specifically why good writing is making a comeback. Hallelujah. Yeah, pretty happy about that, and I'll tell you why. And we'll talk about why it's time to up our writing game in every piece of content we publish. But first, it's time to check in with our news feed for this week's rundown of news you can use. Before I get to our news item this week, I just want to throw a question out there. What the hell happened to Quora? If you're not familiar with Quora, it's spelled Quora, and it was launched, I want to say maybe 3 years ago, maybe even 4, and it was created as a site for thoughtful Q&A based conversation. So you could go onto Quora and post really deep business questions and get some really wonderful answers from thought leaders in the field. And I used to go there every week to see about opportunities to answer other people's questions, to be of service to them. And I've kind of fallen off on that. And I haven't been there recently, but I have to tell you, I still get a weekly digest from them. And it's, hey, Rachel, here are the stories we thought you'd be interested on Quora this week. This week's digest, I kid you not, the opener of the digest was this question. If I see a good-looking police officer, how should I approach and hit on her? Kid you not. This was a guy asking about how he can hit on female police officers. So, Quora, go home, baby. You're drunk. That's all I can say. Nice knowing you. I'm guessing the leadership kind of slacked off and now the inmates are running the asylum because any credibility you may have had is gone by the wayside. Anyway, I just want to put that out there. If you are or have ever have been a Quoraite, that's kind of the sorry state that the site is in these days. So just a little commentary. Okay, in actual news, we do have one item this week, but it is a biggie. Facebook is drinking the Snapchat Kool-Aid, just like Instagram, just like Medium we talked about last week. Facebook launched a new feature called Messenger Day, and it lets users share photos and videos as they happen. The new feature allows users to customize photos and videos with frames, effects, and stickers. Sound familiar? And each post disappears after 24 hours. Again, sound familiar? And at first I thought the name was weird. Messenger Day. What is that? Is it National Messenger Day that we all celebrate? But no, the day refers to the 24-hour lifespan. So yeah, I get it. Also, you will be able to share either with everyone that you're connected with on Messenger or with specific Messenger friends. Again, just like Snapchat. Messenger Day is now available globally with the latest versions of the Messenger app on both Android and iOS. So our latest Snapchat wannabe is Big Papa Facebook. So we will see where this goes and how all this shakes out. Okay, our content hit of the week is a post called LinkedIn Publishing Trends That Every Marketer Must Know. This is written by Susan Moeller over at the Content Marketing Institute blog. Always a great source for wonderful content about content. And this post really appealed to me because there hasn't been a whole lot of chatter around LinkedIn publishing since it opened up to all users a couple of years ago. We're not seeing a whole lot of buzz around it. So what Susan does is she shares some really intriguing insights about the platform. Among other things, she shares that LinkedIn publishing is not showing signs of what we've come to call content shock. And content shock is a point at which more content is being shared than people are willing or able to engage with. Well, she says LinkedIn is not there yet, and she cites these numbers. Between 2015 and 2016, the total shares of content published on LinkedIn publishing more than doubled. So it went from 31 million to almost 73 million. But at the same time, the average number of shares per post increased by 43%. So the number of shares is actually keeping pace with the growth in content, which says that of all this content being created, yes, people are reading them and people are reacting to them and sharing them. So that's just one of the many insights that she shares on this in this post about the LinkedIn publishing platform. And if you are involved in LinkedIn publishing, or if you've been putting it off, or if you're not sure if it's for you, take a look at this post. It may inspire you to take a fresh look at LinkedIn publishing. And I will, of course, share the link in the blog post for this episode. Okay, that's it for this week's update. If you stumble across something you think might be of interest to your fellow content marketers, please tweet it to me at @RachParker so that we can share. Now it's time for this week's Spotlight segment. Is good writing making a comeback? As you know, I am the founder and CEO of a content marketing agency called Resonance. So I serve my clients by they outsource their content marketing to me. So it started as a social media company. I actually started as Resonance Social Media back in 2010, and then in 2012 evolved into Resonance Content Marketing. And being in business for 6 going on 7 years, it's been interesting to see the evolution of what clients ask for. Because for the longest time, they wanted that social media help. They wanted that, they didn't know how to do it. They didn't know how it worked. And they tried to let their intern do it. And that was a disaster. So they needed some expert help with social media. Well, just in the last year, there's been much more of a spoken interest or expressed interest in writing blogs, in writing e-newsletters and things like that. And it's interesting because Resonance is not the cheapest game in town, nor do we ever want to be. We produce a quality product and we, charge accordingly with the value we deliver. But I'm seeing many, many more clients come to me saying, hey, we really need some good writing for our blog, for our e-newsletter. So let's look at why suddenly this increase in an interest in quality writing. Because honestly, I have in the past, not recently, I've had people refer potential clients to me, and when they heard I charged more than $25 a blog post, they were out of there. So I think what happened is, when content marketing first became a thing, or really when blogging first became a thing, and companies started to get into that owned content, they knew they needed writers. They knew they needed good quality, and they went out and found writers. They found experienced writers, journalism majors, people who had been freelancers with many years of experience. They went out and found the talent that they needed. And then as as the monster grew, if you will, people were creating more and more content, and they started cutting corners, and they started, saying, oh, well, instead of paying this person this much for a post, we can pay this person this much, and they only charge $25 a post. So that's where a lot of this crap content has come from, that is causing this sea of mediocrity. And I think companies are now realizing that we are in a state of content shock, that more content is being created than people could possibly ever consume, and they need to rise above. They need a differentiator to not only attract attention, but also to keep people coming back. And they're realizing that they need good quality writing by people who know what they're doing. It can't just be, oh, my neighbor's kid is majoring in English at Rice, so we're going to have him write our blog. No, it's got to be someone who knows the content marketing scene, who knows what goes into a good blog post or a good e-newsletter, and can create them for you. So I think content shock is really the first driver for this interest in greater quality writing. Number two, we've got the growing importance of long-form content. And we've spoken about this on this podcast several times, and we've talked about how, Google tends to rank more highly longer pieces of content. Not that longer always equals better, but better posts do tend to be longer. And I think we said like the 1,200 to 2,000 word mark tends to be a sweet spot. And not only does it attract more Google searches, but it's also more likely to be interacted with, to be shared in one's social network. And I found this in my own practice. So earlier this year, I made the decision to where instead of publishing a shorter blog post every week, I would cut back to every other week and focus on longer, meatier, more research-oriented posts. And I'm seeing a tremendous increase in the number of shares that I get out there. It's really been quite impressive. So, and that long-form content, it's something that, it's more in-depth, it's more research-oriented, and it's not something you can just hand off to someone who once wrote a post for a fantasy football blog or something like that. It's got to be someone who, again, knows what they're doing, can do the research, and can put in the elements that you need for a quality long-form piece. The third element, I think, is reader overload. And this goes back to the whole content shock thing, but this is more content shock is a macro issue, and I think reader overload is a more micro issue. I look at my email inbox and I look at my social media feeds, and I am just bombarded with content that is, it's focused on me. It's clearly referring to topics that I'm interested in, but there is just no way I could read all of that, even if it's well put together. There's just no way. So I think brand publishers are realizing that they need to create something that's special, that's extraordinary, that is not covering the same topics that everybody else covers. And again, if they're going to do that, they need quality writing. The fourth reason I think this is happening is the ever-shrinking attention span. So I've recently heard that the average human attention span is now 8 seconds, whereas the average goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds. So yes, the goldfish is kicking our butt in terms of our attention spans. So what does that mean? That almost seems to fly in the face of the long form content, but it really doesn't. If I have a teeny tiny attention span, which I apparently do, and I start reading something and it doesn't hold my attention, if it doesn't work to keep me interested, I am off to the next thing. So we need to keep in mind that our readers, no matter how intelligent, no matter how savvy they are, if we don't have the kind of writing that draws them in and keeps them fascinated from the first sentence all the way to the end, we're going to lose them. So those are the 4 reasons I think that there is a heightened interest in quality writing. So content shock, importance of long-form content, reader overload, and tiny attention spans. So that's why I'm seeing a lot more interest in quality content from the clients who are coming to me. So whether you are if you are a manager or whatever your role is in your content marketing team, it's time to look at the quality of writing that is going into your content and seeing how you can up your game. And if you are a manager, that might mean giving your writer the opportunity to maybe do some coursework, or giving her some space every week to focus on research, or maybe attending webinars or things to help her become a better writer. Or it might mean, if you don't have a dedicated writer, if you're just kind of assigning it to these posts to whoever has availability or whoever has the information, and the writing itself is not, maybe not great, you might want to see about bringing a full-time writer onto your team, or a part-time writer onto your team. That's what we do at Resonance. We work with brands and marketing teams, and we work with their subject matter experts, and we create something that looks for all the world like it came from them. So you have options available in that quest to up the writing game for your content. So I think the time has come to really look at that and saying, okay, how can we up our writing game? So I want to move on now to what is good writing? What is it? I think we all know when we see it. We can read a post and say, wow, that's really well written. I can really tell that the author is an excellent writer, and it really held my attention. But what is it? Or how do we make good writing as a concept? How do we make it actionable? And that is a topic that could fill many, many books. In fact, I'm thinking about doing a book study on this podcast on Anne Handley's book called Everybody Writes, because she really goes into detail in, what is quality. So, and let me just, spoiler alert, it's not just grammar and spelling and punctuation. Okay? I have seen many, many very badly written pieces that had perfect grammar and perfect spelling and perfect punctuation. So that's just the base. That's the cost of entry. If you don't know grammar, spelling, and punctuation, don't even try it. But what on top of that, what goes into good writing? And I identified 7 characteristics that I will share with you now. There are many more. Like I said, there could be many books written on this topic. In fact, I think my next book is going to be on the subject of quality and how we can infuse quality into our processes, because I think we really need it. So the first element that what am I trying to say? Blah, blah, blah. It's because I'm not writing, you see. The first characteristic of good writing, I think it starts with the topic selection. I think if you are, if you're writing really good quality on one of these bland topics that everybody else is covering, then it's not going to stand out. It's not going to achieve your objectives. So a good writer will work with you on the topics that you cover, and who will be able to challenge you and saying, yeah, I know your competitor just did a post on X and they got great engagement from it, but how can we up the game? How can we raise the bar? And they will push you on those choices of topics and put you on the way to creating something truly remarkable and extraordinary. The second characteristic of a well-written piece is a compelling headline. I have heard writers say that they spend twice as much time on their headlines as they do on the body copy. And this is like for 2,000-word articles. Headlines are so important because, on the one hand, we have these bland, 10 reasons you should get the oil changed in your car on a regular basis. And I fell asleep before I even finished reading that. On the other hand, we have clickbait, which just makes me smack my forehead. Little girl eats a peanut butter sandwich. You won't believe what happens next. So we don't want to go that far, but we do want to pique interest, and that's spelled Pique, by the way. We want to pique readers' interest and show them that there's not only is there valuable information on the other side, but that there's a different twist on it. There's something that not everybody else is talking about. And the example that comes to mind is a couple of years ago, maybe it was even last year, I did a podcast episode entitled What a Catholic Nun Knows About Storytelling and a Business Guru Doesn't. And this was sharing experience I've had of hearing 2 different speakers in the course of a week. So I could have just said, oh, this is an episode about storytelling, yawn, who's not talking about storytelling. But by incorporating that personal element, I really got readers' attention. our listeners' attention, and people really wanted to see what was behind this headline. So a good writer will be able to create truly compelling headlines without slipping into clickbait. And Lord knows we have enough of that. Number 3, good writing involves in-depth coverage of your topic. So it's not just a superficial 10 tweetable tips to do X, Y, Z. And Lord knows I have done the 10 tweetable tips. I am not above this. I need this advice as much as everyone. But, we talked about longer pieces and why they're important. So, and it's not just the length, it's the in-depth coverage. It's the digging deep and uncovering insights that you just can't share in a 300-word blog post. So a good writer will really go in depth in your topic and will do the additional research, do the additional interviews to find those nuggets that you can share that are truly remarkable and unique. Number 4, speaking of in-depth coverage, good research is behind every well-written piece, unless it's purely an op-ed, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to share relevant, valuable insights with your audience, then good research is required. And a good writer will not only be able to do good research, but they'll also be able to make sure that what you're sharing comes from credible sources, And, Frank Dano and I were talking about this a couple of weeks in his interview. You see a factoid quoted in a blog post, and that blog post quotes another blog post, which quoted another blog post, which quoted another blog post, and you trace it back, and the original that you finally get to a blog post that quotes nobody, that just puts the information out there. It's like, okay, did somebody do research at some point? So, a good writer will be able to track down those original sources and get some good research done, again, that not everybody else is tapping into, and share those insights with your audience. Number 5, good writing involves a sense of voice and a sense of style. And I always tell clients, we're not writing term papers here. We are human beings. We are trying to connect with human beings. So, if we're all out there trying to be capital P professional in everything we do, we're going to sound like everybody else. So a good writer knows the importance of taking your brand personality, and translating that into a voice that comes through in everything you do. And a great example of this is HubSpot. They have, they have a very lighthearted, kind of fun brand personality, and they have several bloggers who create content for them, and they all embody this sense of, we really know what we're talking about, but we have some fun along the way. So that's an example of how a good writer takes a brand personality and translates it into a strong voice. Number 6, good writing talks to the readers and not at them. So you're not telling them what to do, you're showing them a problem. And you're saying, here's how a lot of people are handling it, and here's how we recommend that we handle it. It doesn't tell people, okay, here are the things you should be doing. And, I have a wonderful friend who I love dearly, and she's a wellness kook. Bad choice of words. She's a wellness enthusiast, let's just say. And she shares content sometimes that just sounds like she's fussing at people. She'll say things like, I got my workout in today, and I'm one of the busiest people I know, so, being busy is no excuse. Get to the gym today. And I know she had the best intentions, but it sounds like, again, like you're fussing at people. So, a good writer knows how to talk with the reader and to bring them into a conversation about a topic, and then gently sharing some advice that they can follow. But there's a lot of content that's talking at readers, and there's no quicker way to turn someone off. And then the 7th and final for this list, like I said, could go on forever, but good writing is engaging. Good writing doesn't just draw you in with a great headline and a great opener. It keeps your attention all the way through. And good writers know tricks like, varying the cadence of your writing, about, believe it or not, good writing has a pitch. It could be high pitched or low pitched. It could be high energy or lower energy. And a good writer knows how to balance that. Think about a movie. Think about, if you went to an action movie and it was all action scenes all the way through, you would be exhausted in the first 10 minutes, right? But it's got highs and lows. It's got, okay, here's the action part, and here's a chance to catch your breath, and here's something really exciting, and let's think about that for a while. And good writing does the same thing. And good writers know those tactics to be able to keep a reader fascinated from the very opening line all the way to the end. So those are my 7 characteristics that I wanted to point out about good writing. And I believe, yes, it is making a comeback in 2017, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing because readers want it. And I find when brands or when marketing teams make a commitment to good writing, make it part of their processes, everything becomes better. They become more, I think they become more committed to their mission, and they become more excited about their products and services because they are creating this well thought out, quality created content. So if you have any questions or you want to add to this conversation, feel free to tweet me at Rach Parker. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. For today's tip, I want to talk about one resource that belongs on every writer's shelf, whether you're a newbie or an experienced pro, whatever it is that you do in the writing world, and that is Elements of Style by William Strunk and E.B. White. Now, this is a slim little volume that was written in 1935, and it is as relevant today as it ever has been. In fact, it's one of the few resources of which I insist on having a hard copy on my shelf because it's great to flip through. And it's organized into little snippets that are very easily digestible, they're to the point, and they're really easy to incorporate. In fact, I know some teams of writers will take one element to focus on as a daily or maybe a weekly exercise that they all work on. So let me read you just one example of these little snippets. This is from, it's on page 34 in my edition. I don't know what it will be on yours, but it's on colloquialisms. It says, quote, "If you use a colloquialism or a slang word or phrase, simply use it. Do not draw attention to it by enclosing it in quotation marks. To do so is to put on airs, as though you were inviting the reader to join you in a select society of those who know better." Now that is a good, solid, pithy piece of advice. And Elements of Style is just full of these. Every page you'll find 5 or 6 really golden little snippets that you can use in your everyday writing life. So if you do not currently have a copy on your shelf, and yes, I recommend a hard copy because it's fun to kind of flip through and find one of these little nuggets, say, okay, I'm going to focus on this next time I sit down to write. So if you do not have a copy on your shelf, I recommend that you get one as soon as possible and use it. Okay, campers, that is it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play Music or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate it. Also, remember that my book, The Content Marketing Coach, Everything You Need to Get in the Game and Win, is available in book and Kindle format. To learn more about the book and to download a free chapter, visit contentmarketingcoachbook.com. As you know, I always like to leave you with a quote, and today's comes from the author Isabel Allende. She says, "Show up, show up, show up. And after a while, the muse shows up too," unquote. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you again next week. Take care.